Print, email, Facebook, Twitter. More petrol sniffing education campaign to ramp up as NT police investigate death of 12-year-old boy. Northern Territory authorities are set to ramp up an education campaign about petrol sniffing following the death of a 12-year-old boy in Arnhem Land this week. On Monday, the boy was found unresponsive in a car outside his family home in Gapuwayak, 530 kilometers east of Darwin. Although family members performed CPR, by the time emergency services arrived the child had died. A jerrycan of fuel was found in the back of the car. While the official cause of death is yet to be determined by the coroner, Senior Sergeant Dan Whitfield Jones said police were investigating the use of volatile substances. For a 12-year-old to be found in these circumstances is quite devastating, he said. Gapuwayak is a very close-knit community and they're obviously really traumatized by the death of this young man. It's had a profound impact for the Arnhem region. While he did not believe the use of volatile substances was widespread in the region, he said they were used by a core group of people in the region who were between 15 and 21 years old. Following the death, Senior Sergeant Whitfield Jones said police, the top-end health service, the Department of Education and other stakeholders would step up an education campaign about the dangers of sniffing substances. They would also encourage the community to limit access to them by locking up jerry cans, petrol, paints and glue, and keeping them out of sight at stores. This recent tragedy, it just brings home that behaviors are still occurring, Senior Sergeant Whitfield Jones said. We're also aware that the Territory is not the only state to be impacted by it. There are instances in northwest Queensland as well as WA. The sniffing of volatile substances, including petrol, aviation fuel, and spray cans of deodorant, has been a major issue in the Northern Territory. In 2015, a 12-year-old boy died in Alice Springs after inhaling 2 cans of deodorant. Last year, more than 150 young people recorded dangerously high lead levels after trying to get high by sniffing aviation fuel. Sniffing resurgence in Central Australia. While Blair McFarland from the Central Australian Youth Link-Up Service could not comment on the situation in Arnhem Land, he said there has been a recent spike in aerosol and petrol sniffing in Central Australia. In the past 6 weeks, he said about 12 people in Alice Springs had started sniffing aerosols. Since Easter, he said there had been an unprecedented surge in petrol sniffing in communities west of Alice Springs, involving about 20 people. He said this was unusual because the fuel opal, which does not create a high when sniffed, had been in use in that region for at least a decade. But there was a big funnel that came through one community, he said. It's possible that people came to that community from far and wide and some sniffable fuel got in at that point. That spread to a bunch of other communities in that region. Youth programs valuable in preventing harmful activity. In his opinion, the NT government should dedicate more funding to youth programs, which he believed played a major role in preventing young people engaging in criminal and harmful behavior, like petrol sniffing. Until you can put a fence at the top of the cliff, it doesn't matter how many ambulances you have at the bottom. You're just going to have more and more kids falling down that cliff, Mr. McFarland said. Those preventative activities are like youth programs, where there's a safe and accessible place where kids want to be and they feel safe and honored and loved by the community. Places like that are really valuable in preventing the alienation and preventing the anger that can lead to criminal activity. However, he was pleased to see the approval of a new volatile substance abuse management plan for the community of Alikurung earlier this week. These plans, in place across many NT communities, control the possession, sale and supply, use and storage of volatile substances that cause harm. In this region, that community was one of the last ones that did enough sniffing to warrant it, Mr. McFarland said. It's great Alikurung now has that protection. NT Health, NT Police and private health centres based in Arnhem Land have been contacted to comment on the issue. Print, email, Facebook, Twitter.